Hello Exiles, welcome to another build update video for Ice Nova of Frostbolts Occultist. This build has taken off quite a bit this league, a lot more than I expected. It's been pretty popular for both Hierophant and Occultist, though definitely more so on Hierophant because it's easier to get going off the ground and craft a lot of the gear yourself. I myself am a fan of the Occultist, and I've got a lot of questions on Occultist versus Hierophant, and I can go into that more in detail if you want on another video. I just wanted to do a quick update since the video that I originally released before the league started for the Leaguestart. I've needed to make some tweaks, partly because the league has been quite rippy. It's a lot easier to die, and partly because a lot of things are way more expensive than I anticipated, namely Badge of the Brotherhood and the Ralakesh boots. So I am going to pop into path building here. I just go over what my build sort of looked like before I transitioned to Ralakesh boots. It wasn't quite like this. This is just a good example of what you can shoot for. It's about a couple of divines. Most of it is using gear that you can just pick up off the ground or craft yourself for a few chaos. Mostly this tree is focused on energy shield, some energy shield leech, crit damage, power charges, and some survivability. It's not super tanky, but for a couple of divines, it'll get you through your Atlas, it'll get you through all of the pinnacle bosses, and it'll get you to a point where you can farm an easier strategy to get your Ralakesh boots. I tested this in tier 16 maps, and it was pretty smooth. I died a few times to things that do a lot of damage, mostly a lot of physical damage, since the Fizz max hit on this isn't great, but for a couple of divines, it does quite well. Go through the items real quick. Like I said, most of this is stuff I picked up off the ground and crafted myself. This, I picked up off the ground like this. The chest piece, I bought this for 5C on the trade website, crafted increased armor and energy shield on it, and then I 6-linked it using the using beasts. There's a sand beast and the Black Morgan beast that you can use. I believe it's the sand spitter beast and Black Morgan. You just slap those into your menagerie, you put the armor in the thing, and then you kill the beasts to 6-link it. Cost me 120C in total for this chest piece, which is pretty cheap. I ended up selling it for 2 divines later on. And the rest of this, again, just stuff I picked up off the ground. The rings, you can craft these fairly easily yourself. You can either buy a high eye level base, either you want 85 plus for amethyst rings. Go back into the game here. These are the ones I'm using currently. You just buy the base, you scour it, you use 4 prismatic catalysts on it to get the resistance modifiers to 20%, and then you hit it with deafening essence. I use strength on this one, a dexterity on this one to get the stats I need for the build. You hit it a few times until you get good resistances. And if you're using Atulas, you want good resistances and no life modifiers on your rings. Really not that hard to craft, and it'll save you a ton, because these, if you want to buy them, are a few divines, and you can craft it yourself for, 20 to 50 chaos. Same thing applies to the belt. You can hit it with a chaos, res, shrieking essence, or deafening essence. You can hit it with any of the resistance essences. If you need more stats, you can hit it with a stat essence, etc. Surge binders, I wasn't using those on the cheat build, so I'll go into that here in a bit. Like I said, this one will get you through your Atlas tree pretty well. If you don't want to use Prism Guardian and Reserve Life and use Coruscating Elixir because it's too complicated, you can follow something very similar. You just use less auras and you don't reserve any life and still stack energy shield. I want to jump now into my current build, what it looks like. I got Ralakesh boots a couple of days ago, have been playing around with it and tweaking it since. I originally was going to go for this low life version, like I did last league, because it has a lot of damage and is fairly tanky. It's not super tanky, you'll still die occasionally. This league, you die a lot. It's a lot harder this league. So I'll just jump into this real quick. There are a couple of different setups, and they're really easy to do. There's one for pinnacle bossing and uber bossing or tier 17 bossing, where you just swap out Profane Bloom for this extra curse. And you go to your Arcanist brand, and you swap out Frost Bomb for Elemental Weakness, and that's all you need to do. I'll show you here. If you throw in Elemental Weakness, I'll turn off. I'll turn off Frost Bomb. Take out Profane Bloom and add the third curse. DPS goes up a lot, and that's mostly for bossing, since you have to hit them, or you have to put the brand on them, and then you have to cast everything. It's good, really good single target damage. I wouldn't recommend it if you're doing just a normal Atlas strategy. I just wanted to throw that out there. Another thing I've changed on the build, like I said, I'm not going lower life anymore. I have instead taken these 3 regeneration nodes, and instead of using Petrified Blood, I'm using just Tempest Shield without Arrogance, and I threw in a level 20 Vitality for the regen. And so you have a ton of life, and you have a ton of recovery. This recovery mastery right here is actually pretty overpowered. It essentially refills your health bar every 4 seconds. And with these recoup nodes, you recover a lot of damage as you get hit. So you stay fairly tanky, regen pretty well as you're getting hit, and then your life is suddenly full again. You also have a lot of recover on kill for when you're just going through maps, killing things. Your Atula's chest piece has recover on kill, and this one has recovery on kill. A couple of other changes that I have made. I finally got a Timeless Jewel. What you're looking for is Dominus. You want Dominus and reduced mana cost if you can get it. If you can get reduced mana cost and elemental resistances, that is probably the best in slot 1. You just want to make sure that it doesn't mess with any of the notables that you have here. As you can see, it changes this one on mine, but I didn't really need that, and Arcane Surge is probably better anyway. A couple of other nodes that you can take in here, since this build uses a lot of uniques. You have to get all of your resistances and stats on 2 rings and a belt, which is really hard to do, which is why I talked about how to craft a good ring, or good rings and a good belt. You can also swap out Surge Binders. I like it because it gives Curse on hit for when I am running Profane Bloom. You can use Asenath's Gentle Touch. That's a lot cheaper than Curse on hit with Surge Binders. You can also just use a pair of Rare Gloves. An ideal candidate would be the Alva ones that give cold res and damage against chilled enemies. And then just craft the stats and resistances that you need on those Rare Gloves. I am getting a lot of resistances and stats from notables on the passive tree. You can get them from a Cluster Jewel, but I wanted to do this without Cluster Jewels just because it's easier for new players and easier to get going at Leaguestart. So some of these notables, like this one right here, is huge. It gives 10 to all resistances and 20 to strength and dexterity. The one before it gives a bit for resistances, and it also gives a chance to ignore stuns while casting, which helps quite a bit. Another one is over here. You have this one right here that gives 12 to all resistances. That's another big one if you're needing resistances. Over here, fairly close. I took this one for a little while. It gives 15 cold res because I was lacking a bit on cold res. Other notable ones, you have this one here that gives chaos res. You have this one over here that gives strength along with life and ES. And you can also use the search bar up here and just look for what you need as you're going through it. Another huge quality of life is just rare jewels. If you can get life, crit multi, stats, resistances, or any combination of those, that's really big. They are quite good for build glue. I also changed the aura setup. I was originally going to run haste and zealotry, and like I said, League is really hard. So I'm instead running determination and zealotry, thinking about dropping zealotry entirely for grace, since I have plenty of damage as it is. But I'm also pretty tanky net right now with the regen. As you can see, I got 5,000 health, 700 energy shield. So I'm good with it as it is. Determination, I'm also experimenting with Call to Arms and Enduring Cry. What I'm trying to do is get Enduring Cry down to a 4-second cooldown so that it procs along with this Recovery Mastery every time. As it is, it's going every 6 seconds, which is not ideal since it only applies to this every third time. But Enduring Cry is really good for the physical damage reduction as well. I also, because I have so much health now, I was able to level up my cast from damage taken and Immortal Call to a higher level. That just makes me a little bit tankier. Since I have so much health, it doesn't matter if I lose more of it before this procs. I'm also running Vitality and Tempest Shield. Level 20 Vitality gives a ton of regeneration, and along with this Recovery Mastery where you regenerate life per second, it's giving you a ton with this Recovery Mastery. Another change is Willclash. It gives a chance to block spell damage per power charge, which works really well with this mastery with this node right here. It gives spell block and 1 mana regen per 1% chance to block spell damage. So this plus Tempest Shield is giving 75% chance to block spell damage, which helps a lot with survivability as well. The main things that kill you on this build are large physical hits, which you can usually take one, especially if you've got Enduring Cry going and your Immortal Call hasn't been procced yet. But if you take a second one before Immortal Call is back up, that one's going to kill you. My Flask setup hasn't really changed. I automated it. I got a good corrupt on this one. I haven't corrupted any of the others yet. I would recommend not going for reduced duration on a Silver Flask if you're using Silver Flask, since this is only up part of the time. It doesn't last very long. But what you're wanting is increased armor. I like these 4 base flasks. You can swap them out, but you definitely want increased armor on one of them. You want a Granite Flask for sure. Spell damage leached as energy shield is nice. It's not really necessary. It just helps keep your ES topped up, which is just a nice buffer for your life is all. You want increased cast speed. Not having enough cast speed will definitely get you killed, since you have to cast Frostbolt and then cast Ice Nova on those Frostbolts. So if you're in a sticky situation, taking that long to cast can get you killed for sure, especially if you jump in somewhere and get stunned, and then your Frostbolts don't cast, and then you're stuck casting Ice Nova. If you've played the build before, you've probably run into that before. Increased cast speed and ignored stuns is a good way to get around that. Now, if you want a faster Bapper, something that's probably more squishy but a lot cheaper to get going, you can use Feral's Fur and Aspect of the Cat. And what you do is you put Aspect of the Cat on another piece of gear, either gloves, boots, or helmet, and you put a less duration support in there. Less duration support in the equipment the Aspect of the Cat is on will reduce the duration of it so that you will always have maximum power charges and frenzy charges from Feral's Fur. They can still be stolen. You can still sacrifice them. So if you go with that setup, you can't use Malakai's Loop, since this will eat your power charges. And you can't use Willclash, because that will also eat your power charges. And you can't use Tool Fault, because that also eats your power charges. So instead, with that setup, what you would do is either Tool Born or Void Battery. You can use a Blizzard Crown helmet or something similar. And you can use another Void Battery, another Tool Born, or another shield. You can, if you want to be a bit tanky, you can do Aegis and an energy shield setup. There's a lot of ways you can go with that. Still use Badger the Brotherhood so that you get lots of frenzy charges along with the power charges. So that's something you can do if Ralakesh boots are not looking good for you, since they're so expensive. And that is it for this build guide update. I am quite pleased with how tanky this is, how easy it is to run maps now with the League mechanic. I've been able to do tier 17 maps. I've done all the pinnacle bosses on this one so far. I haven't tried any Ubers yet, but that's in the works as soon as I get a bit more DPS for that. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below. Always happy to help and answer questions as I can. Thanks for watching.